Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. I'm back from my East Coast tour where I was out there on a field trip with my kids, my son and his 8th grade field trip. So had a good time out there walking the path of the Patriots. God bless America. Don't forget where you came from. I love this country. With that out of the way, I want to make sure that you guys know if you saw me posting those stickers random locations and wondering why is Bill putting sticker graffiti everywhere, if you look on my Instagram or Facebook and you see that, then go take a picture of yourself with those stickers, DM me or post it on your Instagram, and don't forget to tag me so I see it and I'll send you a free t-shirt. So that's just something interactive to get you guys out there. Get a picture with the stickers that I put on the East Coast and you get a free t-shirt from Let's Talk Dubs. So if it's worth it, go do that. I think it would be cool. I'd love to see who could go out there and find some of these stickers that I put and get a free t-shirt. Get one of the new free t-shirts that we've got coming out. So looking forward to seeing anybody who does that. I'd do it, but then I'm me. So I'm not you. So it may not be worth it to you, but I think it is. It's cool stuff to do. I'm back in the studio and we're releasing a podcast today that was from a VW enthusiast in Germany that you may have heard of. But before we get into that, let's make sure that you guys support those that support your favorite podcast. Go subscribe today to VW Trends Magazine at vwtrendsmagazine.com. Go ahead and subscribe and get yourself some new issues. It's back once again, VW Trends Magazine on the scene after a long hiatus. Go get you some VW Trends Magazine, not the same old magazine you've seen everywhere else. So check those guys out. Also, go to Ross Wolf and get yourself some high quality aftermarket parts built by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. That's right. Top quality parts that they're coming out with all the time. So check them out. One of my favorites is the Viton gasket kits that they have. Never use a paper gasket on the bottom of your motor. Reusable Viton gaskets and a sump cover plate kit. So pick one of those up. Get yourself the lock-in dipstick. If you keep blowing crap out of your dipstick hole, get that handled. Also the billet shift rod bushing. So get them all dialed in. Tons of good stuff that they've got on their website. So check it out. They've got something for everybody. Even, matter of fact, I need some bus deck lid hinges because I was just looking at the Beetle Barn bus and the supercharger kit came in from Compressor House. George and I are getting ready to do a video on that assembly of the supercharger on that motor. So we're going to take the old Beetle Barn bus and we're going to supercharge it. Then it's getting lowered and then the interior's done in it now. So looking forward to getting that dude out on the road and making her a little more drivable. We'll be doing a video on that. I'm excited to see the difference of going from dual caddies to a supercharger. So that kit came in recently. Look forward to that video. I've also got some videos that I need to be dropping. I just finished 10 videos for my trip that I did for my kids' school. So I just put those out and now I got some time to finish some of my videos I've been working on. So that's where we're at with all that fun stuff. I know we did a roundtable a couple weeks ago and got a bunch of good feedback on that. But let me give some shout outs right now. First and foremost, not only do we give a shout out, but any of you guys out there that are believers like me and want to throw up a prayer to the big man for our buddy Bob Lacoste. He's in the hospital right now. And shout out to Bob from the compound, man. Hope you're doing good. And everybody throwing up there to the big man for him. He's one of our guys and we need him dialed in. So hopefully everything goes well with his procedure and his biopsy. If you've seen him on Instagram or Facebook, give him some words of encouragement, man. That's our guy. Shout out this week goes to Sean Hanning out of Jacksonville, Florida. Picked up a shirt, one of the new logos that we've got on our shirts. If you haven't seen this, go check out the website. But shout out to Sean for supporting the podcast. Also, my guy Gregory Mendez out of Somerset, Texas, man. Hooked it up, picked up some stuff, and he says, awesome podcast. Totally hooked on the show. Every Friday, I'm looking for the new podcast. Following the show from San Antonio, Texas, man. So shout out to Gregory Mendez for supporting the podcast. Appreciate you, brother. Because I was gone this last week, I didn't get an opportunity to go to the bug-in weekend with the DKP Cruise Night, Hot VW's Cars and Coffee, but there's been some news that Hot VW's magazine has changed ownership. I'm looking forward to trying to sit down with Tom Kinney, who is going to be up there with the Volks Group, and see if I can sit down with him and get some insight as to where Hot VW's magazine is headed. So you did hear that I'm going to be going to the Volks Group race in Medford, Oregon. I'm going to bring my drag bug out there and see what I can do. Hopefully I'm able to get it on the track and make a few passes, but I'm also dragging my buddy Johnny Osmondson that you heard of on the podcast. So we're bringing Johnny out to play. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a crazy weekend heading out there, just trying to make things happen, but a lot of miles to travel in a short amount of time, but I'm excited and looking forward to getting out there and getting some interviews. Hopefully I'll sit down with my guy, John Sugar, recent champ, and looking forward to meeting and talking to a lot of other people out there. Always going out to those Medford races and the other ones that they do out there with the Volks group. They're always a great time. So I'm excited and am anticipating that. So that's next week. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do any of the bug-in stuff and all that. So before that, Fred Norbert came to my house, who's a big VW guy in France. He's a real big enthusiast, had a raspberry bug that he had done, louvered out and all that, real throwback to the 80s. And he came out here, happened to pop into Vegas for a day or two. We brought him around, took him for a ride in Future Shock. And, that's what we do here at Let's Talk Does, make dreams come true. So I'm more than happy to, when listeners show up and give them the tour of what we got going on over here. So if you're ever in town, hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. And mi casa, su casa, man. Unless you need to borrow some money, then we got different issues to deal with. So, anyway, let me tell you about today's podcast guest. Today's guest, Georg Otto. He's an author. He's been a publisher. He's a VW enthusiast to the core, and he's also in a classic traditional cow look club in Germany called DFL. So, he's been around quite a bit. I'm sure you've seen some of the things that he's done and put out there. You've seen his Type 34 Gia in the magazines. There's lots of stuff out there. Matter of fact, I think they did a club exclusive in VW Trends a while back. So definitely check this one out. It's good stuff. George's a solid dude, and he's holding it down in Germany for us. So check it out. He's got a great story and get some insight. He went from working with the magazines to working for manufacturers. So got to see both sides of the fence and experience what that was like, from being on the magazine side to being on the marketing side of a product manufacturer. So it's a great podcast, and it's just more people you get to know around the world from this wonderful hobby that we have. So without any further ado, guys, let's get into it this week. From Germany, Georg Otto, author, publisher, automotive journalist on Let's Talk Dubs.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen. It's got everything that people who like the bug like. So if you happen to see a good-looking Volkswagen, don't panic.
Okay, buddy. On today's podcast, I've got a guest coming across from Germany, and as I was there at Volksworld Super Show, I had an opportunity to meet Georg Otto, and you may be familiar with Georg Otto if you get any subscriptions to some of the magazines there in Europe. There's a club there, DFL, which is like the classic cow look club that's based out of Germany. And George is one of the founders of that club. In addition to that, he's an author, an automotive journalist, and more importantly, an enthusiast. So on today's podcast, I'd like to welcome Georg Otto. George, welcome to the show.
Hello, Bill. Hello. Thanks for having me.
So the way we always start the podcast, you've been a pretty heavy staple in the VW community there in Germany and in Europe overall. The way we always start this podcast, as you know, is how did you get into Volkswagens and what's your VW story?
I'm a car enthusiast since I can or could speak. My first word was auto. I knew all the brand names when I was little. I really don't know how I ended up with Volkswagens, because my dad is an auto enthusiast as well, but he prefers pre-war cars, so no Volkswagens there. We never had a Volkswagen in the family, an air-cooled Volkswagen at least. And I was always interested in old cars, classic cars. And one day I went to a party of a friend. I was still at school, and outside was one classic car parked and a coupe, and I've never saw a car like this before. And I asked my friend, so do you know whose car that is, that classic car? And she said, yeah, that's my boyfriend's car. So I met her boyfriend, and he said, it says on the engine lit Karmann Ghia. You should have known, or you could read that. And I said, yeah, I know a Karmann Ghia, but I don't know that kind of Karmann Ghia. What is it? And it was a razor edge gear.
So your first exposure is the Type 34 Ghia, huh?
Yes, I mean, we had, when I was little, I was born in 71, we had Volkswagens all over the place, Beetles, buses, Ghias, but I couldn't recall having seen a razor edge gear before. And this guy, he was a good friend back then, or he got a good friend of mine, and he said, George, we have to get you a classic car. And at first we looked at everything available in a certain price range. So I was looking for a 914 VW Porsche, Fiat Spider 850, the other Fiat Spider, the larger one. Anyways, stuff cars like this, Lancia Fulvia. And then I think I already read Hot VWs and VW Trends because of my friend with razor edge gear. We had at that time no VW magazine in Germany. We had custom car magazines, and they featured from time to time Volkswagens as well. It was hard to get Hot VWs and VW Trends. We had to go to the airport, and we paid I think 16, 17 Deutschmarks. I don't know what that was in dollars. It was really expensive. To compare it better, a magazine in Germany was like 4 Deutschmarks. Yeah. So that was like four times the price. And
now, so we're fairly similar in age. So when the car scene, like when I'm in high school, and it may be different in Germany, kids are driving their own cars to school, and that's where I'm starting to see people driving mini trucks and bugs and things like that. Was it the same in Germany? Were kids allowed to drive their cars to school and that type of stuff, or no?
We are allowed to have a driver's license with 18. So that is the difference to the US, because you can drive a car with 16 when you're 16 years old. So, but when you are in the last classes of what we call, I guess it's similar to high school, people had cars already, of course, but most of the time they had like Mark I Golfs and Opels and Ford Escorts and stuff like this. So I can't remember anyone in my school and my age driving an air-cooled Volkswagen. I think I was the first one. I infected some of my friends with that VW virus. But at first I thought, I go for a Beetle, oval window, IRS pan, magenta color. That was what I wanted. And then I thought, okay, this is if in my area it's special. If you go to a VW show, it's not so special. Maybe I want something else. And then I said I buy me a Type 14 gear, a regular gear. Then I figured that the prices for those cars are higher. You couldn't replace a fender because it was all welded up the body. So I decided I'll have a Type 3. So my first car was actually a 69 notchback, toga white, red interior. It was early model, so the last of the early ones. And that was my very first car.
And now when you buy a car in Germany, so that we understand here in the States, when you're 18 and you get your car, is that something, can you lower the cars and modify them and all that kind of stuff? Or is it really difficult? So there's no problem to do any of that.
Right. It doesn't matter if you're young at age, you can drive a modified car. That's not a problem. And back then, people were modifying their cars heavily, definitely, yes.
And do you remember any particular magazines were you more influenced by the magazines from the States than you were from the magazines in Germany?
I think I liked Hot VWs and VW Trends. to be honest, I like VW Trends a little bit more because it was more colorful. In comparison to European magazines, there were lots of black and white pages still, which wasn't very attractive. I didn't like the split features, 2 pages and then read on, continue on page whatever. That wasn't really appealing. I liked Volkswagen a lot because it was all color. It was really, I don't know, maybe because it was European as well. They featured their own scene, barely some mainland Europe cars, but it was all we had. We had Chrome and Flames and Hot Car magazine, and in 1989, VW Scene magazine was launched, and that was the first magazine, all VW magazine, but not air-cooled only. It was water and air-cooled, which was, I wasn't really interested in water-cooled Volkswagens, but I read them from cover to cover anyway, because it was the only information we had back then.
Now, do you remember if there was any car that you saw in some of the early issues, like one particular car that really kind of you looked at it and said, that's my goal to have something like that? Any cars from your early days in the hobby that you remember that really stood out to you?
For Volkswagen, yes. It was in Hot VWs. There was one car which really caught my eye. I went to the States in 1990. I went to Oregon. I have relatives over there, and I went to a school for foreign people to learn English. And I bought a Hot VWs magazine, and there was a metallic blue notchback on polished Fuchs wheels. And it was from Northern California. I think the headline was something like NorCal Notch or so. And I copied that page. And when I was working in the school vacations at the factory to earn money to buy my own car, I put that copy on my desk. I knew, and to
motivate you,
motivate myself. That's my goal. I want to have that car, and you were allowed to work there for I think 3 weeks, and if you were good, you could do another week and another, and up to 6 weeks. That was the maximum. That was our summer vacation. And I was good. I was working hard. And always when I said to myself, okay, that's the last week, I looked at that double page and I thought, no, I have to work more because I want to have that car. Yeah, that was the car that inspired me.
And now so how much do you find this first notch for, and what do you pay for it back then? And this is 1990, or would you buy the notch, or
Yes, it was
1991.
I think it was 1990 or 1991.
Mm-hmm.
It was in a small ad magazine. We had a magazine that was full of small ads, just small ads, nothing else. And it was published weekly. And it was very important to get it as early as possible to get the good cars.
Right.
And that was in Mannheim, which was not far away from where I lived back then, maybe 45 minutes. And I had my friend, like I said, who owned the Razor Edge, and we were flicking through the pages and looking for cars for me. And we found that one, and we went there. I forgot what the price was. I bought it. I think we missed, when we looked at it, we missed that it was welded to the pan, because they replaced, or not replaced, the sills, but they, I think they replaced them and welded them onto the chassis as well. So I remember that I brought the car to a friend of mine who had a workshop to have some minor rust repairs to do, or asked him to do them. And while I was in the States, or the deal was, when I come back from the States from the 6 weeks, then the car is done. And when I came back, I really was looking forward to having my car. And he said, George, there's too much to do on the car. I think that will cost more than you can afford. And from today's standard, it was nothing.
Yeah.
But back then, it was too much. So I scrapped the car, which was ridiculous. It was just regular notch. It was nothing really special, but I ripped everything off the car, and I called the crusher. He came with a tow car, and the engine and the gearbox was still in. And my friend said, George, let's remove the engine and the gearbox. And I said, I don't know. I think that's too difficult.
Wow.
And we had no clue. We had no idea. And so that car got wrecked. All the parts like the hood and doors and interior and stuff, I sold that to a guy who was dealing with Type 3 parts, and that was the end of my first car.
Man, that's a brutal story. And so and it's a 61 notch too. It's it's funny in hindsight.
69.
Oh, 69.
So one of the last early models.
But it's still, we think about these cars that we get and we get so spoiled where we think like, oh, this thing's got rust in the rockers, I'm getting rid of it. And nowadays they're restoring cars with a B pillar. They get the B pillar and build the whole car from there. Now, the weather in Germany, when I was in Germany for a little bit, I was near Stuttgart and places like that. And it reminded me of California, like Northern California area, kind of driving around on the Autobahn, Is the weather there fairly decent, or they get hard winters there where the cars get pretty rusty?
We have hard winters as well. When I went to Oregon, I felt very right at home because the weather conditions there are over there same as in Europe, I would say, or in Germany.
Right.
Yeah, not Europe, because we have Southern Europe where it's really hot, but it's more like in Germany. So we have harsh winters, we have salt on the streets. So you always have to deal with rust with old cars, definitely.
And what car do you end up buying after the notchback?
After the notchback, I was looking for a new car, and in the same small ads magazine, I saw a Razor Edge Gear, 69 Toga white, red interior. Sounds familiar.
Right.
One owner, 65,000 kilometers. That equals to like 40,000 miles, I would say. It was 5 5-hour drive away in northern part of Germany, in Hanover. And I saw it like I said, in the magazine, and I drove to my friend with a Razor Edge Gear, who was working at a car hi-fi shop back then. And I showed it to him and said, here, look, a car like yours, blah, blah, blah. And he said, George, that's something for you. And I said, I don't know. My friend gave me his car. We swapped cars from time to time, so I had the chance to drive a Razor Edge Gear. I knew how rare they were, how expensive the parts were. I wanted a Type 3. I wanted not a notchback anymore, but a squareback. And so he said, George, this sounds really good. It was 10,000 Deutschmarks, what he was asking for. So the price was okay. It wasn't cheap. He knew what he had. And my friend said, come on, let's call this guy and see if the car's still there. So I called the guy. He wasn't there. Remember, that was pre-mobile phone.
Right.
So my friend said, okay, let's go there. And it was 4:00 in the afternoon. So that would have meant we will be there by 9:00 at night. And I said, this is crazy. And let's go with, at that time, my parents bought my sister and me a car, a Polo, which is a little bit smaller than a Golf. And I said, let's take my Polo to get there because it's faster. And then I got my car and we left. And then my friend said, wait, we have dealer plates in our shop, and we can take the dealer plates because if the car is good, we can take it with us directly. And I said, good idea. So we went back, and then another friend of ours who was working there as well said, I have a 3 Series BMW 325 that is even faster. I'll come with you. We go there. And I said, okay, guys, it's crazy. We haven't talked to the guy. We have no idea if the car is still there. We don't know how good it really is. And then we agreed on that we stop at Frankfurt, which was from where I lived back then, like an hour away north. And we went to a phone cell to call the guy, and he was there. And so we agreed on that, or he agreed that we have that we arrived like 9 o'clock at night, and it was dark, of course, best time to look at the car. So we checked out the car, and it seemed really good, but I wasn't too sure because the razor edge line around the car, it was painted black, and the sills were painted black, and underneath the bumpers it was painted black, and the air intakes in front of the windshield, they were also painted black, like kind of rally look, whatever.
Right.
And I didn't like that, and that was my main concern. And my friend said, George, this car is better than my Gia, so go ahead, buy it. And we talked to the guy and said, okay, I go for 9,000 Deutschmarks, and I think I bought it for 9,500, which was quite the money back then, but I had the money because I was working at the factory. So I bought the car and we drove it back home. And it was really strange because the only razor edge I knew was the one from my friend. And all of a sudden I was sitting in a razor edge gear as well, but it was mine. And it was really, it took a while to really know it's true. I got the car, that is yours. And I have that car ever since. So that was in 1992. Yeah.
Now, in 69 is a low production Type 34, right? They didn't make very many in 69. Yeah. And is yours an automatic or manual?
No, it's a manual. It has all options available besides the sliding sunroof, the electrical, which the original owner ordered, but then figured that he can't afford it, whatever. I don't know what the exact reason was for that, but the title was already printed and it already read sunroof. And then there was a stamp, changed, closed roof. And so that is special to my car, that it should have been or should have a sliding sunroof, but hasn't. I got used to it. One day a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to have a sunroof roof because he had one from a donor car to graft it on my car, but that's the way it came from the factory, and that's the way it will stay.
So your car's kind of an anomaly. It's a stamped sunroof model number, but it's been overridden for whatever reason. Now, even back then in the early 90s, the Type 34s were a really rare car. I remember, the first one that I had, my gray car, was kind of a legend status car locally because there was one guy there was two Type 34 Gias that we knew of here in town. One belonged to a guy who owned a VW shop, Randy at Western VW, and the other one belonged to a guy named Jerry Casey, and he's the guy that he kind of got out of the VW scene. And after seeing Randy Gates' split window that Buddy Hale built, I thought, man, I can't find a split window, but I know what's rare as a split window is a Type 34, and that's when I hunted down that car. And I remember that car from the 90s. It was like if he showed up in that car, like, wow, that's a rare car. And I'm assuming they're as rare there in Germany, especially in the aftermarket scene.
It was really rare. I mean, even most of my friends thought I bought a BMW because from the rear with the round taillights, it looks like a 2002 BMW a little bit. And nobody really knew the car. Even when you went to shows, usually my friend and I, he's got a light blue 69, and my car is a toga white 69. So our cars were the only cars. Even if we went to big shows like VW in the Netherlands, maybe one or two other Razor Edges showed up. But we always said the old guys, they don't buy them because they know how difficult it is to get spare parts for the car, and the young people don't know the car. That basically that was it back then. Nobody really wanted them or knew about them.
Well, yeah, and I know that if back then, if you ended up buying a Type 34 and it was incomplete, it's almost like, don't buy it. It's worse. Like it's worse if you buy it incomplete. But to find one with 40,000 original miles, that's got to be a cherry car. So if you've had that car your almost your entire VW career. So that's pretty lucky to be able to hold on to a car for that long, because, as young kids, we get a passion and then things change. So, I mean, I commend you for holding on to that car, because I've gotten rid of several that I wish I've never gotten rid of. But with this car, so now you've got, so you start to work at this point shortly thereafter. You start to go down the road of being an automotive journalist or apprenticing to work in the magazine or publishing field. And what makes you decide to take that and look for, I mean, you're that much of a car guy where you're like, I want a job in automotive journalism?
It was by accident, by luck, whatever you want to call it. What I wanted to be all my life was being a car designer. And coming from a family, my dad is an architect. My grandfather designed in theaters the background. I don't know how you call that, but the setting,
the set design, set design,
right? And he was a painter as well. So I have done some skills and some talent, but I figured that studying or getting a car designer, becoming a car designer is not so easy. There's one university in Germany where you can study that field. It's part of transportation design. And so I thought, okay, then I go industrial design, which is nice as well. But then it has nothing to do with cars. And it came through a friend of mine. He was the guys from VW Speed magazine, which was new in, I think, the first issue was published in 1995, and they began to publish quarterly in 96. And they saw my friend's car, Greg's car, Toga White, Type 3 Squareback, sunroof car, awesome car on Fuchs wheels, polished Fuchs wheels. And he was my neighbor when I moved to Karlsruhe, which is a city south of Frankfurt. And they featured his car. And when he went to the first photo shoot, it started to rain, so they stopped the shoot and said, okay, we do the rest of the photos at another day. And they asked him if he knew other people with cool cars for the magazine. And he said, yeah, I have a friend of mine has a Razor Edge Kia. He lives next to my place, and I can bring him next time to the photo shoot. So we went there together, and then they asked us if we would be willing to do show reports. And so we thought, great opportunity to earn money with what we do anyways. And so we started, shooting and writing. And then one of the editors left, and they were looking for a new editor or for someone who wants to do or make an apprenticeship as an automotive journalist. And I thought, I was always interested in cars, and I didn't know if I can write or not, but I thought I'd give it a try. And so they took me, and they were really happy with me, and and that's the story. The rest is history.
So you begin to apprentice, and it's like maybe in any industry, if you start to work in it, you start to understand the industry a little bit. And
Right.
one question I have to ask you. Now, the magazine, you were apprenticed at VW Speed and Gute Fahrt is the name of it. What?
Gute Fahrt means safe travels. That is, yeah, I would say the translation.
Okay. And so you apprentice at those magazines, and you're still in the hobby, which is kind of the best of both worlds. How do you see your relationship by your friends maybe getting strained because, come on, George, get my car featured in the magazine. And as a person who helps get things in the magazine, you can't really, your buddy's got a car, but it's not that nice. You know what I mean? And it's like, you have to, do you notice that people treat you differently now that you're part of the magazine instead of an enthusiast? Everybody's like, oh, George, how does that play into your hobby? Does it affect your hobby at all?
It did. What I noticed was that people, when you have a booth at a show, then people get to know you. And as long as you're not the editor, having your picture at the first page with the editorial, which is usually you have that in Germany. Mm-hmm. As long as your picture isn't published there, they don't know the staff. They know the editor, the chief editor, but not the staff. They get to know the staff at the shows. And then you notice, we were young. I was 25 back then. And of course, when you know that the shows in Germany are different to the ones in the US. Usually we have all weekend long, so from Friday to Sunday, the shows usually. And we got there, we had barbecues, we were drinking beer. I could behave the way I wanted, basically, when I wasn't working for the magazine. But when I worked for the magazine, all of a sudden I noticed that, people know that you are working for the magazine, and they treat you different, yes. Sometimes it was difficult, when you're at a party. Once I was at a 30th birthday party, and we all had, some beer, and it was two VW guys had that party. So, of course, VW people were invited as well. And there were two guys I knew, but not very well. And they sent photos of their cars in to get them featured in the magazine. And we wrote them back that those cars are nice, but they are not meeting our standards. And they approached me late that evening, and asked me why their cars can't be featured in VW Speed. And I told them, guys, I'm not here as George from the magazine. I'm here as George, friend of Toby, and I just want to party. I don't want to talk business. And that sometimes was difficult.
Yeah, sometimes when you have that, in our microcosm of a VW scene, you become kind of this, here's this guy who's a celebrity, or not a celebrity, but like you're somebody inside the industry that makes decisions. And come on, George, you can get my car in there. Just do me a favor. It doesn't have to be we won't show that side with the scratch or the dent or whatever the case is. And it's difficult because, when you have to ride that balance of when you're part of the magazine, you have a job to do and you have responsibility to the buyers of the magazine. So this takes me down an interesting segue. Recently, I did my review of the VW publications that are out here in the States, and I reviewed just the cover art. Mm-hmm. What is your opinion with respect to a magazine cover, and how do you, I got two parts. I'm going to give you that first. What are your favorite type of magazine covers? Are they, is it a single car 3-angle shot? Is it a scene depicting a lifestyle? What is your favorite? If you had to pick, like, my favorite cover of a magazine would be like this type.
My personal favorite cover is a single car cover. A great photo, atmospheric, maybe with a scene with people cleaning their cars or whatever. But if you look at it from the professional side, it's the worst cover, because there are people who buy a magazine when their car is in the magazine. I own a Type 3. I want to read about Type 3s. There's no Type 3 on the cover. I don't think that there's a Type 3 in the magazine, so I don't buy it. So the best for the magazine, or from a professional point of view, is having a magazine with a cover with like 4 or 5 cars on it, 1 large photo and 3, maybe 4 smaller photos, to show the reader what's inside the magazine, that there's more than just a gear or a bus or whatever. But aesthetics-wise, it's one shot, great photo, it's the best cover.
I mean, and I think probably from our standpoint of enthusiasts, we love to see like an epic shot of a car. One of my favorite, I love all the old VW Trends. In my opinion, VW Trends had the best covers because they did a lot of, at least in our generation, it seemed that the magazine was selling a lifestyle, and capturing part of that, and us being young enthusiasts, that for me was like, oh, I got to get that. See the girls in bikinis and all that kind of stuff. And we've seen that evolution, right, of the things, because the cars were, as much as everybody wants to be politically correct, the automotive industry is majority guys, and guys appreciate cars and women. And we've seen that change over time. But, my favorite feature I had in my car, I've had a car on the cover a couple times, and I did 2. I did one with my brother. I'm in the double cab. It's a small insert on the vintage special, and I'm doing a burnout in my double cab while my brother's in a double cab he built for a customer next to me. And my other one was a garage scene that I shot with RK with my Type 34 on Hot VWs. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when I saw Randy Gates' car, I said, I need a car that nice, and I can't build it. I knew my limitations, and I'm in too much of a rush for anything, right? I want to be driving the car. And it's funny, that cover scene, RK's like, well, stand by the car, do something, get a rag or do something. I remember one of my friends says, oh yeah, that's really, funny to see Bill on the cover of the magazine acting like he knows how to work on cars. And it's like, we're all VW guys. If you're in this hobby, you have to know how to work on a car. But it was, it was funny, the comment that made, and it was, for me, it was more like, I just wanted the shot of the scene where there's more going on. And even with artwork, like I like artwork where there's like a scene where there's lots of little hidden gems in the scene or things like that. So I like that now. And I like that your appreciation for like a single car shot, if it's epic, is also great. I remember one of the VW Trends that I recall is it's a guy and a girl in the front seat of like a baby blue Bug, and it's doing a burnout, or it appears to be doing a burnout because there's a bunch of smoke or dry ice in the background or whatever. And I like a still action shot. Now I'm going to ask your second take. What is your take? Because we're from the same generation. What's your take on the patina car thing as a whole? Like, how have you seen that evolve, especially being from the magazine side, right? Because I think back to what you said earlier, the magazine's got to sell something. And I also equate it to when we're kids and we're standing there and we see this shiny car go by and it just looks so cool, it grabs our attention. I often think, how many times does a patina car, it's got shock value, there's no question, but how many times has a patina car gotten some kid to be like, one day when I grow up, I'll be able to afford that or have that, or I don't know. What's your take on the whole patina thing? And does the magazines you're a part of, do you feature patina stuff? I mean, like, how's it? Because that's kind of Hayburner's whole thing, right? Like a magazine
Right.
for the people. And we have one here. It's called Volks America. And, you know, it's for a different type of people that appreciate stuff. But what's your take on the whole Patina thing personally?
The first car we featured in VW Speed, Patina car, that was, you may know that car, that was the Linde bus from Walter Jelinek from the Bug Box. It was a split window panel van, blue with Linde advertisement on the sides. It was really low. It was photographed by the late great Stefan Bau, with Walter on a snap-on, how do you call that? Those boards where you lie under the car with
a creeper.
Wheels.
Yeah, creeper.
A creeper. He was lying on a creeper, snap-on creeper, holding onto the bus with a rope while someone else drove the bus, and they made a rolling action shot. And we had that as a poster in the magazine. And people love that car. The Linde bus is an iconic Patina car, but it took Walter a while to convince me to feature the car in the magazine, because that was, I guess, in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. I really forgot when it was, but I would say like maybe 2000, 2001, 2002. And it was all new. We knew the Patina style, or that people like Patina from the Scandinavians. I think it came from Sweden, Norway, and I said to Walter, and that is the difficult part when you have a car like this in the magazine. What do you want to write about the car? We break it down to the story. I find a split window bug in a barn. I pull it out. I grease the axles, lower it, put wheels on it, and that's it. And then I'm ready to go. Okay, fresh oil, all that stuff. But that's basically it. You can't fill 6 pages of a magazine with a story to that car. Maybe it was a adventurous rescue scenario, because they, those stories when they rescued Sambas by a helicopter out of a swamp or whatever. Then you have something to tell the reader. But if not, it's a very short story. I appreciate first paint cars, Patina cars. In my opinion, they are definitely more valuable than a restored car. But it's difficult for a magazine. It's really difficult featuring a car because, like I said, there's not much to say. What do you want to say?
Right. Well,
it's, the guy, the owner says, I bought a lowering beam. I bought wheels. I bought new brake fluid, new oil.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, and for me, it's been kind of I look at it, and for a while it really bugged me, unless someone really follows the theme through. You know what I mean? Like, and I've seen them where they're kind of blown out and rusted on the outside, and then I see them where they're, they've got that done, but the interior's all new and everything's nice, and it's nice inside the cockpit, but there's kind of a look. I think I remember in 2014, the first Volksworld show I went to, there was a right-hand drive oval window that was out of Ireland, and it was literally a rusted hulk of a car. And I just I
remember that.
I looked at it, and I just, like, for me, it was the epitome of like, are you kidding me? Like, this car is literally rotted, and here it is on display. And I thought, this is the pinnacle of too much, right? Like, cause they did a bunch of brass engine treatments and stuff. And I just didn't understand it. To me, I was like, I don't get it. You can't really drive it. It's blown out. Like, does it really look that cool? Because it would look way cooler if it was all brought back to life. So I don't know what drives it, whether people, like there's something to be said, I think, for the look of the car, that this car was saved, right? The battle scars and all that stuff. But I think in order for there to be interest in it, there's got to be a story behind it. It's a significant vehicle. Right. Like, John Jones did one that he saved from that Tom's wrecking yard. It was a 23 window, and he powered the roof back straight, did some stuff like that. And that was cool to me because there's a story behind it.
Right.
But it got to the point where people were even faking patina, which was then just like, you're putting the same amount of effort and energy, and then it becomes a look, right? In Germany, obviously that's where the German look comes from. And
correct.
I'm a huge fan of the German look. Probably I've never owned a Super Beetle yet, but I would love to have one completely German looked and all that. What is your take? Because you're it seems that you've kind of followed the American style the whole way. You know what I mean? Like the cow look, the skinnies in the front, bigs and littles, all that. Where are the origins of the German look come from? Like from the German side of things, when did they start doing that? And is that tied in with like Käfer racing, or what do they call that out there? Käfer Cup?
Yes, correct. Käfer Cup. That's where it comes from. It's most of the styles are in automotive history. They are inspired by motorsports, and the same with Kellogg. It was inspired by the drag cars, and the same with the German style. When the Käfer Cup, it ran from I think 1989 to 1999, 2000, something like that. So about 10 years, and those cars, they inspired people to build their road legal cars. And that's where all that stuff comes from. And they of course took parts from Porsches as well, from 944s, from 911s, brakes, for example. And that's where the style originated. And I don't know if I want to own one of these cars, but they are awesome to drive. I had the opportunity to drive one from Remmele, who is one of the most famous German-style tuners or workshops. And those cars are really fun. I mean, it's a 1303 or 1302 Super Beetles. They drive completely different to all the regular versions of the Beetle without struts. Way more modern, and the German style people, they put a lot of high technology in those cars. Brakes, they can I don't know the English word, but they can adjust the brake,
the anti-lock brake.
Some have anti-lock brakes, but some can,
like the traction control. They use traction control.
Yes, or you have more pressure on the brakes in the front than in the rear, and you can adjust that.
Yeah, proportioning valve on the fly.
Yeah, proportioning valve. Yeah, that's it. They have stuff like this. They invented, or they integrated 911 or 964 rear wings to the engine lid of the Beetle. There are so many inventions, things they adapted to the Beetle. Those cars, I mean, the top cars, they have I think if you want to build a car like this, it's at least 100,000 euros, dollars, whatever.
Really?
Those cars are really expensive. You really have to have a Type 4 engine. I think a proper German-style car has to feature a Type 4 engine, 2.7 liters, 2.9 liters, 3 liters. That's you can run carbs, but I think fuel injection is also, it really fits those cars because they are not old school technology, they're new school technology. And but they're pretty rare in Germany as well. I mean, like I said, if you want to have a proper German style car, 100,000, easy.
Wow. And I tell you, I was exposed to a little bit of it when I had to buy the exhaust system for my Bull Run bus because I did a Type 4 motor in there. And I bought an Onendorp exhaust system. And when I started, I remember going on the website, German Look and stuff like that, and just cruising around. And I thought, man, if I had to say there's one style of car that I love the best, it's like a German look style. I love a traditional cow look. I've got a BRM car. I've got a little bit of everything, but the German look, and I don't know what draws me to it so much. It may be the absurdity of such a fast looking Volkswagen. I just think they're so impressive looking. Now, talking about the German look, and it comes from German look because it seemed like in the 80s and whatnot, there were a lot of people, in the aftermarket, like a lot of guys were using Type 4 engines in Europe. Like the typical guys that don't do cow look, most of the guys in Germany that are modifying Volkswagens, they're trying to update them and make them newer and more improved? Or what's the reason that a lot of guys there use Type 4s in Germany?
I think they improve in Germany. People improve their cars to handle better because we are not a country of drag strips. We are a country of circuit racing, a hill climb. That's our motorsport, and that's the reason why people. I remember when we founded DFL, people asked us when we lower our cars in the back and when will we put wider wheels and tires up front, because those cars don't handle. And we said we don't want to handle, or want to have our cars handle well on curvy roads. We just want to be quick at the traffic light. That's all we want. And people, it took them quite a while to understand, because if you weren't reading foreign magazines, you had no idea about Kellogg, and that's the reason why everything we had was touring cars and stuff. So people modified their cars in that way. And the Type 4 engine, I remember that very well when I was young and new to the scene, and I had no idea. I remember when I looked at Hot Vws, and when I came to the advertisements, and I was always looking for wheels and steering wheels and dress up parts. I wasn't looking for cylinders and barrels and rods, because I thought I have cylinders and rods and barrels in my car. I don't need any other. I had no clue engine-wise, and people told me if you want to have, if you go over 2 liter, you have to have a Type 4. A Type 2 will not, a Type 1 will not last. If you have a Type 1 over 2 liters, forget it. You can use it as a drag race engine, but not on the road. And you have to see that we are able to drive as fast as we want on the Autobahn. And yes, a Type 1 engine, if you go full throttle for an hour or 2, your engine will run hot eventually, I guess, and maybe it does not last as long as a Type 4 engine, but in regular use, especially with those cars, not our daily drivers anymore, but fun hobby cars with 3,000 miles a year, you can easily have a 2.3 liter Type 1 engine and drive that on the road. But that was a reason for the people, because they said Type 4s are more reliable and they come as 2 liters from the factory. So put on dual carbs and another cam, and you got 120, 140 horsepower and reliable horsepower. I think that's the reason why many chose the Type 4 route.
Now, when you guys started, because you guys started DFL, which was a traditional cow look club, probably the most popular in Germany. And DFL stands for, how do you say it in German?
DFL Luftgekuhlte. It was translated by my friend Mike Pye from Volkswagen to the fierce air coolers. So that's his translation. I guess that nails it.
And what you guys started that club as, and the principle to that club is to be a traditional cow look style club in Germany. Like, is that the requirement of the club, or is it just a group of friends?
It's a group of friends, but also a requirement. In the beginning, we were a Resto Kellogg and Kellogg club. Resto Kellogg, because most of the cars in the club were Resto Kellogg cars. We had just one Kellogg car. Back then, it's still difficult to have a Kellogg car street legal in Germany for various reasons.
Well, what reasons in particular?
In particular, the skinny tires up front. You can have a big engine, big horsepower engine, but you have to have matching brakes and matching tires. So with a 145 tire up front, if you have to do an emergency brake on the Autobahn while driving 100 miles an hour, you will just lock the wheels and the car pushes rolls, doesn't roll because you lock the wheels, but it just
slides.
Goes forward.
Yeah.
Right. So that is what is highly illegal.
Well, how do
if you have wider tires?
Yeah, how do they calculate that? Do they look at horsepower and tire width on the front, or what do they do?
Yes. They say if you have this kind of horsepower, you have to have vented brakes up front, maybe vented brakes in the rear as well, and you have to have this and that tire and wheel width, and that's what they do, and then you get your car street legal. There are various ways to get around that, but it's getting more and more difficult to drive a proper Kellogg car on German roads. But going back to that day, Resto Kellogg cars were easier to get street legal, and we didn't expect that we get our cars street legal or many street legal Kellogg cars in Germany together. So when we formed that group, we were 6 friends, all from the same area, but one guy, he lived a little bit further away, and it's only on invitation. We were inspired by clubs like DKP, of course, and it's today. You can have the perfect Kellogg car if you are a not so very nice guy. You can join the. I don't want to say the bad word. You can join the club,
right?
But if you have to fit the other guys. Character-wise, humor-wise, you just have to fit, and then you can get a member if you have a proper Kellogg car, but not the other way around.
Got it. So it's the car and it's the attitude. It's like the individual itself, because there are clubs out there where some people just have a car and the club is about the car, not the people. And, oddly enough, clubs that last are clubs that are about the people. There's just people that kind of hang out together and have common interests. So, So when you started it, you guys were 6 friends that would show up at a car show. You guys would what is the biggest car show for you guys there in Germany?
The biggest car show is the 1st of May show. It's like the name says, at the 1st of May, always, because it's a national holiday. So when 1st of May is a Wednesday, then it's on a Wednesday. It's in Hanover. It's a one-day show, very unusual for Germany. And when I started to be part of the scene, I never went to Hanover because like I said, I bought my car there. It was a 5-hour drive, way too far for one day, and we weren't willing. It's like it said in May, so it's a little bit cold for camping, and we weren't willing, or we didn't have the money to rent a hotel room, and so we never went there. So it was more like a northern part of Germany show. And then when I worked for VW Speed, we talked to the organizers because we wanted to make it bigger. And then, for example, in the beginning, it was just a parking lot. Cars came. It was a huge swap meet with professional traders and regular people selling their stuff from their garage. And you just park the car. And there was show car next to a daily driver. It was very unorganized. And like I said, when I worked for VW Speed, we met with the organizers. We met with the guys from CSP. They sponsored a show stage where people could drive their cars on. And we had a moderator and a jury judging the cars. And then Jesus Christ, I forgot. I think in 2004, we invented the DFL May Cruise Madness, which is a cruise night the day before the 1st of May, so 30th of April. And this really helped the show to take off and get more interest in Europe, because then it was kind of a 2-day show. So you had the cruise night the day before. It was worth going there because saw all the new cars that were built for the season. They usually show up at our cruise night. In the beginning, it was like 50, 60 cars. Meanwhile, it's like 400, 450 cars. And 1st of May show is 3,000 to 3,500 air-cooled cars.
Wow.
From mostly Germany, but also from Scandinavian countries, Belgium, Netherlands, Poland, England, France. Yeah. Stefan Szantai, my friend, he wrote a story for Hot VW, I think for Hot VWs or for VW Trends, I don't know, forgot about it. But he named that story Europe's or Germany's best kept secret, because not many people know about that show. I mean, outside Germany.
Right. And so most of the cars that show up at that gigantic event are from Germany, huh? That's quite...
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of cars for one show. So
yes,
I think
it's huge.
I definitely would like to check that out. I mean, I was there at Volksworld. It's my second time being at Volksworld. I've been to EBI, so I plan to go to EBI. I think it's next year is EBI, right? And is it next year or year after?
Correct. Yes.
And
next year is EBI.
And I would definitely, I really, that's the biggest difference I've noticed between the shows in the States and the shows in Europe. The shows in Europe, it's kind of like, it's a festival type atmosphere. It's a couple of days long. It's more expensive to get in. In addition to that, it's a weekend event. It's not just a drive in, drive out. What was your experience the first time you went to a show in Southern California? Or you went to the VW Classic and you watched 1,000 cars show up and leave?
It was VW Classic, of course. I liked it. I mean, it was always called the greatest show on earth, and it was fun when you come there and you know how huge the 1st of May show is, and then you see the cars. I don't know how many cars were at a usual VW Classic show, but I guess it was something like maybe between 500 and 1,000 cars. Impressive cars, to be honest. And of course, the weather, everything that helped to make it, look really cool. I enjoyed it because I think it was in 2000 that I came to a VW show first time, or SoCal VW show. And it was fun. I knew Stefan already, so we hang with the Panzers, and we had a chance to drive with them to the show in their cars, meet up with them. You had the Berg Rally, you had the Toy Literature Show. So it was more than, I mean, the Classic Week is something different. It's not a regular American show. It's a full week.
Yeah.
So what amazed me is that there's so much history in Southern California regarding the Volkswagen or air-cooled Volkswagen hobby, and all the shops, the shows, the people, cruise nights everywhere. It's Mecca for a VW guy, definitely.
But your perspective on it being a drive-in, drive-out show, and it's more small spots along the way, did you like the difference of like traveling in different locations and doing, the DKP cruise Friday night and then Saturday, the Octo, and then and then a get together. Usually there's usually toy and literature show at the hotel, at the host hotel, and then it's one of my favorite weekends to do, and I've been kind of salted really by the way that the people in Southern California have seemed to kind of blow up the scene a little bit, and having one event over here, and then you had the Prado event, and then it became almost too much. And I don't know about you, I live in the desert. When I go to Southern California, I want to be not far from the beach. And, it's like when they have some of those shows inland, it's like, well, I could be at a hot park here in Las Vegas. I don't need to drive 2 hours to go to a hot, dusty park over somewhere else. So, I mean, for me personally, it was always about the experience, the Southern California aspect, the bird cruise. I mean, I got to the point where in the last couple of years of the Classic, I would get a bunch of guys before we'd go to Octo. I'd say, guys, there's no prize to get to Octo first, and it's going to be there, but let's go down the street to Cars and Coffee, because they would do the Cars and Coffee one exit east, and you would go there and see everything from exotics to classics and all kinds of stuff. And, I just enjoyed the weekend. It kind of saddens me that it's gone, because, last year they had the Classic and it started to have a little resurgence, but they're not doing it this year. So, which is really kind of a drag for me, because first weekend in June is always, my favorite time to go down there. This year, there's a bunch of different stuff, but I guess it's just the evolution of the scene, and things change and evolve. But I know that I really like the way the shows are in Europe as far as the 2-day event. And, I'm starting to do that here in Vegas with my show, One Crazy Weekend, that we do here. Because if you're going to come here, it's like, come here, stay a couple days, enjoy the experience. And here, I want it to be more of a driving event. There's a strip cruise Friday night, and then we do the poker run on Saturday evening. But I love really the driving aspect of having the cars and the meets, and, whether it's people get together, go drag racing or whatever. You obviously are a cow look guy. You have a cow. Are both your cars? Well, how many cars do you own now?
2 air-cooled cars and 1 American water-cooled car.
Yeah, we'll talk about the water-cooled car in a minute. But the 2 air-cooled cars, you have your Type 34 Ghia
and a 1971 bay window Clipper L.
What is that? What is a
Clipper L? Is like the deluxe bus, so it's kind of the Samba bus of the bay windows.
So big sunroof.
It has a sliding sunroof, correct? 2 and 3 bench seat, and 2-tone, and jail bars, just like the luxurious version of a bay window.
So
bus.
Stock or lowered?
It's stock, and it's in a state that it has to get a restoration soon.
Yeah, and you found that bus in Germany?
Yes, it's a German bus. I'm the 3rd owner.
So after you start the club, you've got your club that's DFL out there. Later on, after you start the club, which looks like the club was founded in 1998, You go
Correct.
on to be the editor for VW Speed and the Gute Fahrt magazine.
Gute Fahrt, yes.
And then you become the assistant editor for VW Speed. Then you publish, in 2003, you publish a book.
Correct.
What made you decide to publish a book?
The idea or inspiration was a special issue of Volkswagen. I forgot the name. It was full of how-to stories. And I suggested that to our publisher house to do a special issue of VW Speed as well, with all the how-to stories we published so far. And they decided not to do it. And then, like a few weeks later, they called me and said, "Can you do a book out of it?" And I said, "Yes, but I have to produce more stories because we don't have enough stories for a book." So I planned the book. It's a book for people who get into the scene. So you have at first you have what is it?
Kind of a timeline.
A book is divided into
chapters.
Chapters. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
So the first chapter is what tools do you need to work on your VW. Then there's a chapter about maintenance, so how to grease your beam, how to change brake fluid, how to adjust your valve, stuff like this. And then there's a chapter about easy how-to things on your car, like changing or swapping to disc brakes or putting in an adjustable beam, lowering your car in the back, nothing really fancy. I think the fanciest stuff is putting 40 IDFs on your 1600. Then there's a style guide, so I show the various styles the VW scene offers. I think torque numbers and stuff like this. So for the cylinder heads and so on. So it's a book for the beginner, and it sold really well. I think 7,000 copies in like 3 or 4 years time. I mean, it was in the early 2000s, so the book market was different to today. But it was fairly cheap. It was 20 euros. It was already euros, right? And I got good feedback. People liked it, and that's how the book happened.
Well, interestingly enough, it must be worth something, because I see it selling for quite a bit more than 20 euros right now. When I see
that's
it,
true.
Has it become kind of a collector's item, or like your go-to handbook for a Volkswagen, or what?
I don't know, to be honest. Sometimes I meet people and they say, "Oh, I have your book and it really helped me a lot." But I really don't know. I saw the book already for 70 euros, something like that. If you're patient and if you're looking around at swap meets, you still get it for like 30 euros or 35 euros. I don't know. To be honest, I'm not the right person to ask. You should ask people in the scene.
And
I don't know if
it was only published in hardcover.
Yeah. It was only published in hardcover, correct?
Yeah, there's one here that's available on a website here in Las Vegas no, it's not in Las Vegas. It's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And it's for $119 for this book. So that's pretty wild that they go for that. But maybe it's something kind of cool, right? You were able to contribute something to the scene that has some intrinsic value because of the information that's in it. And although everybody can go to the internet and look up whatever you want, it's different to be able to have that on demand in a bound, printed document, which seems to be rare. You brought up that the book market and the magazine market has changed. Obviously, you've been there through the transition to the digital age. What's typical? Have magazines dropped to where it's like if they're doing 20% of what they were doing in 2000, that's great. I mean, what is magazine circulation, and how is that changed with the advent of social media, especially? Because to me, I always equate to people, I say Instagram is like a magazine in your pocket. You punch in something you want to look at, and you can just get just the photographs of what you want to see without any other nonsense, so
Right.
how has that affected the publishing world from where you stand, as far as especially in aftermarket stuff?
It affected the publisher world a lot, especially in the magazine market. The book market is different, I would say, because it's still a different feeling when you have a nice coffee table book with gorgeous photography. You can have a 27-inch Mac and you have a huge screen and you can look at a picture online, but it's still something, it's different to a big, large book with beautiful photos. Magazines is more difficult. I remember when that was in the early, 2000, 2001. One of the first modern times Hot VW's drag days at Carlsbad. And I got the slides from Stefan, and I checked the slides on the light table, and I knew I was the first person, presumably in Germany, looking at pictures of the Hot VW's drag day. And you look at 100 pictures, you choose like 30 pictures for the coverage, and then 2 weeks later they get published, and then the rest of the VW scene can look at those pictures. That was really special. And in 2000, yes, the internet was there, but it wasn't as big as today, of course. Today you don't have to publish show reports because you are late anyways as a magazine. Mm-hmm. Even if it happens today and the deadline is today and you put it in the magazine, it takes you 2 weeks at least to get it to the people. You have to change the way you feature the show, in my opinion. You have to have information and pictures that the internet does not have or offer. And it's important for magazines more than ever to have certified information, because the only reason to buy a book or a magazine is because I get certified information in there. That's why I buy the magazine. If I look at the internet, I can look at the pictures, but the information I get, I don't know if they are right or wrong. I have no idea. When I read, and now you don't have that many forums anymore, but when you go to Facebook groups or so, and someone asks, how can I bleed my brakes, or how can I swap the pads or whatever, sometimes you read ridiculous answers and you think, okay, if you do it like the guy advises, you will crash into the next car or tree or whatever.
Right.
And so I think it's still important to have magazines, definitely. You have to have content which you can't get on the internet, and then it's well worth buying magazines.
So let me ask this question. The magazine coverage used to be a picture of a bunch of different cars, all the different cars that were the scene, and maybe some of the new cars. Do you think getting the value of a magazine would be like getting the value of buying the magazine would be if you could photograph and capture the essence of the show? It's hard to say it in words and understand the meaning, but like when you, again, we're back to when we used to walk by a magazine stand and you'd see an article, you'd see the cover that makes you want to grab it and pick it up. That was really my basis for how I judged the magazine covers. Which one of these magazines would I see and be like, oh, I got to get that one because it's got, this or this in it, or it looks exciting, or whatever the case is. So maybe as much as what's old is new again, maybe from a photography standpoint, if you're able to catch, because I think too much we've put the focus on the cars, and really what the cars are about is the people. And so if you could somehow photograph what the experience was like, there was a feature that was done on my show here in Las Vegas, and the feature was strange to say the least, because with a magazine now, you have to, this is my opinion as a guy who's a critic, just because I've nominated myself to be a critic. And second, a guy who puts on a show, and I also publish something for consumer consumption, right? So I think the value a magazine brings to the table is it should sell me the show. Tell me I should go to the show, and here's why. These are the fun things that happen, and here's photographs of people interacting, having a great time at this event. So now we almost are back to trying to sell a lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? Like, and to some degree, it's like, how do you capture that? How do you capture an action shot of what's going on that's part of the fun? Because everything is static pictures. You know what I mean? So, and how do you do that? And because you look at some of these old pictures from the black and white, from the early Buggins and stuff like that, and then you see like, where the people are jamming in the car, they're trying to pile people in the car, or drag, cars mid wheelie, or whatever the case is. There's a lot of action shots. So I don't know if maybe that plays into it. I know that I've tried personally, and I think you're going to have to merge the two. There's no choice, because like you said, how do you stay fresh as a magazine and are able to bring something that people want to go to for they can get the certified information, and then B, the business of a magazine obviously is to sell the advertising, right? Because you're a marketing publication. And you need subscribers as much as it's like putting on a car show. You need as many participants as you do spectators, and you need the balance of the two to make it work. Now, because I've thought about this for a long time, and I wrote one article for VW Trends, and I offered and sent a QR code for an in-depth podcast about the person that owns the car that was in the feature. I just did the same thing, and no one's taken me up on this. And I just received a book from a guy named Craig Watkins. He's an engineer he was on Porsche's Flying Lizard engineering team. And he wrote a book, a hardbound book about a Porsche engineer. And his name is Kussmaul is his name. And he's
Kussmaul, yes.
Kussmaul, yeah. And he worked with him. But what's so neat in the book is that he's got little QR codes that'll take you to a YouTube video of him sitting down with the actual audio recording of the narrated version of that book that you're reading. And what I found so engaging about that is when we read a book, we make up characters in our head based on the words that are printed. But when you can merge the two mediums like that, and you can actually get a feel and the essence of what this guy's like, his accent, his mannerisms, those types of things, it adds another layer. And I think it's important that, especially in the publication world, if they start to engage in some of that, because I've always offered anything that I can do, because the purpose I do the podcast is to contribute to the whole of the hobby. And, Baja Bug, the movie that came out recently, all of the audio clips from Bruce Meyer were from my interview with Bruce. And I was so thankful to be able to get that interview, but it was such a good story. And to look at Bruce, if you're not a dune buggy guy and you're looking at Bruce Meyer in the magazine, and you're a cowlook guy, hardcore through and through, you don't really care. You know what I mean? But to be able to watch something that you're indifferent of and get the essence of who Bruce was by hearing his voice and listen to his mannerisms, I think there's got to be a way where the two mediums have to interject, because I think generationally, people like us in our generation, we want something tactile, something physical to hold that is maybe kind of a a snapshot in time, because that's really what we use the old magazines for, right? Like, oh, I'm going to get my 1971, hot VWs and see how much a header was selling for back then, or those types of things. But how do you see where you could merge some modern technology into, well, maybe that's not my question. My question, well, part of my question was, how much have you seen magazine subscriptions drop off? And then how much have you seen like digital magazines start to, is there a lot of people subscribing to the digital aspect of magazines? Do you see people that see value in that?
I don't think so. That digital magazines are the way to go. I think, like you said, you have to merge both mediums. As you know, I worked for CSP in the marketing department, and we when I worked for CSP, it's still we printed catalogs with all the CSP products for the Beetle, for the split screen bus, for the bay window bus, and so on. And one of my colleagues had the idea, and I think this is the only way to justify a printed catalog, for example. We put the QR code next to every product. We incorporate it in the design. It looks good. It doesn't look, out of place. But you have the QR code, and when you flick through the catalog and you see a nice exhaust, then you scan the QR code. You are at the CSP website, exactly at that product. Then you choose the diameter of the tubing, and then you click buy, and you pay by PayPal, and next day it's at your house. And the same goes for magazines. You have to connect the printed version with the internet, and like you said, put a QR code next to it with an interview of the owner of the car, or with a sound file that you can listen to the car, because it's a whatever 2-point whatever engine with turbo, and hear it going down the quarter mile. And I think that's what you have to connect, but it's difficult to do that. It's a lot of work, and I don't know how to do that for every story, for every show report. I don't know, because then you think you have to make a proper video. You don't want to do just a kind of snapshot video. That means you have to cut it, you have to put music to it, whatever. It's a lot of work to connect both mediums.
No, I agree. But even when you just said that, it just struck a chord with me. Like, if I was looking at, and I thought for 2 seconds, I thought that would be fantastic. Let's say I have a magazine, and as your interview, you just click on a QR code and it takes you to a short, unedited, just raw YouTube video of that car on the quarter mile, boom, hitting the thing, or maybe, just how the air suspension goes up and down, or something making it interactive. I really think those things will bring huge value. And then now, since you and I are both brainstorming on fixing the entire industry, because you brought up something that was really interesting to me. I thought when you said that, I thought, you know what? It would be better, trackable, and more effective from a magazine standpoint to have a QR code that's linked specifically through the magazine, so that the advertisers in the magazine could see how many people are being funneled to that business through the magazine, by offering specials to the consumer from going through the magazine. So you have to kind of support the two have to support hand in hand.
Right.
Yes, so
of course.
No, I think that's great, because, us being the guys, the age we are, and you're quite a bit older than me. I was born in 72. So, I'm way, way younger. And so, but being that, just today, yesterday I was on the phone. I went on the Samba, and now it's become, I need nothing, right? I have everything in my collection that I need, but now it's like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll see about getting an issue of VW Trends, an old issue. So I click on the thing, guys got it for $45, and I just sent him a thing and said, listen, I need that magazine like a hole in the head. I'd give you $25 for it, but I really don't need it because you can find everything about it online. But that's kind of where I'm at, is I use the magazines for original reference information, or to see some things. And on top of that, some of the stuff printed is not accurate from back in the day, like with cars owners and things like that. So I think it's interesting to watch the dynamic change. And I think it needs to incorporate more interactive aspect. And I'm not a book guy, and I've been reading this book that Craig sent me that he wrote, and I thought it's fantastic. It's got some exclusive photographs in it that are part of someone's private collection. But we're getting to a point with our hobby now where the 3 or 4 podcasts that I've done with the people from Bakersfield, I'm dying to try to do a documentary on, with the recorded audio that I have, pictures that they've sent me. And it would be, so even if it was 20 minutes long, but it's like, it just takes the time to sort it, put it together, and that type of stuff. So I totally get it, because it seems to be so much work. And when you go on YouTube nowadays and you'll watch a video that someone spent 6 days editing and it has 3,000 views, and then you look at a video of some guy who's wire wheeling a front beam, and he's got 250,000 views, and there's no content to it. And you sit there, I had this conversation with a friend who has a YouTube channel, and we were talking about how people generate revenue from things like that. And he used to edit videos and stuff. Now all he does is he walks through a car show live streaming. That's it. Doesn't, a little bit of commentary here and there. But he says, man, I used to slave over these videos, and then it would just boggle my mind. Like, they wouldn't get, you see these things that get hundreds of thousands of views, and they're low quality, but it's just something that people fixate on. And that's the thing in the modern day of marketing. Like, how do you pinpoint what's grabbing people's eyeballs? Because ultimately that's what marketing does. And that leads perfectly in the segue of you working for CSP. How did you like going from the magazine publishing side to the marketing side of CSP, and how did that whole thing come together?
I stopped. I have to check. I stopped working for VW Speed and Gute Fahrt and DFL Vw, my own magazine, which I invented in 2009. And for 5 years, I was self-employed as an automotive journalist, and wrote for various magazines like VW Classic Magazine, Porsche Classic, Air Mighty, and I did also some marketing for BBT, for Werk 34, which is Heusner and Stauber, and Custom Speed Parts, just to name a few. And then in 2014, I started working for a magazine called British Classics and some other magazines, a full-time job. So I still did social media for CSP, and then my contract was over in 2016, and CSP said, so what are you going to do now? And I said, well, I don't know, we'll see. And they said, well, we could hire you. And I said, yeah, well, why not? Then let's work for you full time and be responsible for all things marketing. And I have the knowledge. I know the scene. I know what people like. I have a network of people who could show our products or the CSP products. at shows or on social media, Facebook, Instagram. And so I did that. And it was really fun because, in my opinion, CSP products are made in Germany. And made in Germany means really they are developed in Germany, in-house at CSP. They are made in Germany. If we couldn't make them, we gave it to companies in Germany. If we couldn't find someone in Germany, we gave it to a company in Europe. But we never, still today, as far as I know, never produced anything in China or in Asia or in countries where you have minimum or very low wages. And the quality is second to none. It's all tested in-house. It was fun. Working for a company like this makes it easy to stand for the products and to advertise those products, because you are convinced and because you have them on your car, how good they are. And I don't know if you have CSP products, but if you put a CSP disc brake kit on or an exhaust system, you don't have to bend the header. It fits right on. That's because they have jigs at CSP, and every header goes on a jig to check for fitment. And the CSP disc brakes, for example, they come with all the screws, all the nuts, Loctite, everything you need. So it's not that you open the box on a Saturday afternoon, try to assemble your brakes, and then find out that you're missing or you need whatever, 2 screws, and you want to go to the store and the store is closed because Saturday, and you have to wait until next weekend.
So they've got so CSP.
Was
They've got a really good commitment to quality, and I know the few things that I've purchased from them, mostly Type 4 stuff, have all been good quality stuff. How did you see the difference? What was it like being on the other side? Did it seem challenging to you, trying to understand, like trying to figure out, because when you've got a catalog of products, what dictates what you're going to focus your marketing on? Is it an overstock of inventory? Is it a need that the industry has? Is it something that's, your highest margin mover? And how are you able to, how did you see that transition going from the, hey, buy advertising from me on the magazine side, to trying to figure out which is the best magazine where you're going to get the most return for your investment? And did it open your eyes to be on the other side of the table?
Being on the other side of the table was interesting, especially in this world now, with magazines often struggling getting advertisements because you have the internet. And of course, it's interesting for you as a company, public or advertising on the internet, because it's all trackable. It's easier to see what your customers like and what they don't like. But I think it's also important to publish in or advertise in the magazines, because we had that in Germany with the Opel scene. Opels used to be GM. You may know that.
I do.
And their scene was pretty big. And then I think we had 2 Opel magazines, and they are all shut down, or both shut down. And the scene got smaller and smaller because there was no magazine anymore. And even today, where we have the internet, and you may think, oh, you don't need a magazine, we have the internet. It is important, because people, where do you get your information about new products from the scene? I don't know if you get them maybe you get them through Facebook, maybe you get them through Instagram, but it's more difficult to get people to know your products. Back in the day, you had the magazines, you had the news pages, and they were like 4 or 6 pages full of new products. And you could put your product in there. And like 50,000, 70,000 readers, they read about your new product. Today, for me, it was really, as a marketing guy, it was really difficult to decide where to show our stuff. Yes, we showed it at the Facebook page, at Instagram, but you don't reach all of the market on your own pages. So it was difficult to really to know or to see where to advertise. And the magazine is definitely 100% your customers.
Well, and I also think that with respect to the marketing on social media, a lot of social media is split by demographics, right? You have people that are in their 40s and 50s on Facebook, and then their 50s through 20s on Instagram, and they don't communicate the same way. But the magazine is the magazine, and that's kind of, from a historical standpoint, the reference, at least I think in the automotive industry and the car hobby, because that's what we go to, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough in the new world of communication, right? How to connect with your customer on, 5 different levels. So I think that's maybe one of the challenges that's made magazines in and of itself so challenging.
I think we still have to adjust everything. The advertisement, the magazines, I'm pretty sure that we don't, or all of them did not find their spot where they, it's all changing and still changing. And it's not like, okay, this is a new world, this is internet now, and this is the magazine, this is printed advertisement. I think it's, you know that we had Facebook, then Facebook was only for old people, and it's not interesting anymore if you want to follow your friends. But if you're in the car scene, it's definitely important to connect with the world, with other enthusiasts. But then Facebook, like I said, is more something for older people, and then you have Instagram. And Instagram is a younger audience, but then the older people also went to Instagram because they checked it, or they figured, there's a new thing to see, to check out. And I think we will have, maybe in 5 years or 10 years time, we will have something new, and a new app which we like to use and which companies have to play with and magazines have to use as well. I think Shin from Hot VWs does it pretty good with his YouTube channel, with the Hot VWs YouTube channel. So he's connecting the magazine with the internet. Maybe there's improvement, but I think that's at least a beginning to connect those two mediums.
No, it is, and then I see today, currently, what are you doing?
I'm working as a commissioning editor for the biggest or the leading publisher house for motor books. So everything with wheels and engines is published in our publisher house. So we do motorcycles, cars, trucks, construction site, machinery, everything. And that's my job. So I am looking for new for new authors. I am looking for photographers. I try to make plans for new books. And it's challenging as well because there are a lot of books already written. You don't have, or if you think you don't have to write a book about VW buses, you better think again, because if you are like you and me for a long time into the scene, you have most of the books, maybe.
Right.
But there are also new people coming into the scene, and they like to see a book which is, on the surface, just showing all the 7 generations of buses and a little bit of history, and that helps them maybe to dive deeper into it,
or stay at the surface and say, oh, well, the early air-cooled bus is too maybe not reliable enough, and I want to go with the family on holidays. T4 or T5 will be good as well, but they will be part of the scene as well. Even so, they are driving water-cooled cars, but then they go to shows, maybe meet people owning older cars, older buses, and they are still topics you can write books on, definitely.
Now, do you see is the book market fairly strong still?
In Germany, especially in the COVID times, it was really strong because people, there was nothing to do because you couldn't go out, you couldn't go to shows and to the restaurant, to the movies. And so they started to read again. And it's right now it's difficult because price for paper went through the roof. It's getting better again because that was because of the war and because of COVID and the supply chain. But this is getting better, and I think there's still a good market for books. Definitely, car books at least.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen recently a few one restoration book and an engine building book published here in the States recently. And, I think with newer generations getting into some of these things, there's value in having some of that information documented. I mean, me personally, I'm really focusing a lot on history only because that's the way the podcast has taken me. So I definitely find a lot of value in that. And I'm always buying a book. If I see a book that I haven't seen and I happen to be at one of the few bookstores that I see, I end up going right to transportation, looking for a Volkswagen book, and I end up buying one just to add to the collection, so I think it's there's a lot of evolution still in the hobby, and as some of us guys are getting older, but we're still part of that generation where, although we're the old guys, we're still connected through social media through a lot of these things, but we're part of the generation that we need to see value in the social media for us. Like, I don't see a lot of reason for guys like us to be on TikTok and even on Twitter. Like, I don't see a lot of the VW world on Twitter. They have an existence there, but nobody really posts anything there. So
right.
It is interesting. I definitely think there's a lot more to go. And before we wrap up, you also are a Mopar guy too, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit. I love the full size. I love the full size fuselage C bodies from 69 to 73, and I'm really just interested in these cars, nothing else. Lee Hedges?
Yeah, I do.
And Lee, I never understood why Lee was only interested in razor edge gears. Mm-hmm. And we met at the 50th anniversary of DKP, and because I had some stuff for him, razor edge parts, and I asked him if he wanted to walk around and check out the DKP cars, and he said, no, that's not my cup of tea. And so he went back home, and I can understand a lot better since I am also interested in Mopars, because that's what the Mopar people don't understand. So you're not interested in Chargers and Challengers and Super Bs? No, I'm just not interested in it. I love those full-size cars.
Now, which model? Which model is it?
I have a 69 Chrysler New Yorker for the hardtop. I wanted to have a car like this. Most people like two-door cars. Because I have 4 kids, I wanted to have 2 bench seats, no posts. So because I love the hardtop style when you have rolled the windows down in the summer, and no B-pillar. I think I needed that. It wasn't a break, but I needed something that was away from the VW scene, just to figure out that my home, my world, my family is the Volkswagen family.
Yeah.
I met some really nice Mopar guys as well, but the VW scene is something you can compare to any other scene in the world, and it's the biggest, largest car scene in the world, I guess. And I made so many friends all over the world, in Japan, in Taiwan, in the US, in all over Europe, just through that car. And I wouldn't want to live without air-cooled Volkswagens, definitely.
I tell you, I have a couple other cars. I've got some GMs. I've got a 65 Buick Riviera, and then I've got a couple 66 Corvairs. And, I like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but my home is always the Volkswagen,
Yeah.
And, I just find it because of the simplicity, and it's where I started,
Yeah.
So, George, I tell you, we've done a ton. we got a lot of time, and we'll probably have you back when I start doing some specialty stuff to bring you back in and talk about some stuff in particular to some of the things that you're connected with. We could sit here and talk for 2 more hours about all kind of stuff. About how crazy does a guy have to be to start Air Mighty magazine? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah. It's like the Rodder's Journal of Volkswagens, but it's like that is a massive undertaking, and then publish it in multiple languages.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
It's a tall mountain to climb.
I was part of that adventure in the beginning, and it was fun. And I really have to say, Niels is doing a great job. It's a great magazine. I always love to get the new issue. I think that's the way to go. I have Rodder's Journal as well. I'm a subscriber, and when I get Rodder's Journal, I know that evening will be reserved for the magazine, and I have a nice beer or a glass of wine and sit down in my comfy chair and read the magazine. And it has to be quality to survive. That's quality and content which you can't find on the internet, and then you can survive with a magazine.
No, I think you're in this changing environment. You're going to have to figure out the recipe that works.
Yeah.
So, well, George, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you. And if you'll be at the Air Mighty show in Holland, I'm going to be there in September.
Okay, so see you there for sure. Thanks for having me, and talk soon.
You got it, buddy. Thanks. If you like that podcast, make sure that you share it with your friends. Click on whatever link you listen to, copy and paste it to a group text to all your buddies in the VW world. Tell them they need to get on board and listen to Let's Talk Dubs. If you want to support Let's Talk Dubs, go to my website, letstalkdubs.com, and support your favorite podcast by picking up some merch. I'm going to have some poker chip keychains coming out here real soon, so be on the lookout for those, as well as the new shirts that we have in the store. So make sure you guys check that stuff out. Get yourself flossed out with some LTD gear, and don't forget to go subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as George's YouTube channel, The Wagon, on YouTube. So he's doing a lot of informational videos on their how-tos and some instructional stuff. So go check that stuff out. And until next week, guys, later.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen.